security posture and how we can master and get it even better from the tools that we have available, basically mostly within the M365 tenant, but we'll also have a look at other tools available. A little about me. My name is Peter Smith. I work as a cloud and security architect and consultant. I'm based out of Denmark. I'm Microsoft MVP in M365 and has been working a lot with Exchange and through the Exchange Master program as well. I work a lot in the community space, especially in Denmark, where I run the workplace user group, Ninja user group, together with fellow MVPs here in Denmark as well, where we do monthly meetups. So you are more than welcome to connect on some of the socials if you want to. Basically, around the agenda in my session, we'll briefly cover what we look into in terms of security for 2026, and then dive into some of the tools aspects which makes sense to try and move the security baseline in your M365 tenant. Some of the topics are the Zero Trust security baseline, the Secure Score Vulnerability Manager, and a tool called Meister. So if we look into the threat landscape that we see going into 2026, most of the information here is based on the digital report of the defense and security from Microsoft, but also other cybersecurity outlooks for 2026. So it's fairly new information about what we see currently as security-related threats. AI-driven attacks is still on top for 2026. There has been a huge increase, especially around AI-driven phishing attacks and so on, but also in other attack vectors. Identity is still one of the main front doors in terms of security. What is often seen is that identities is taking over, and that's a way in. So identity is definitely one of the primary battlegrounds, and what we see in most organizations is that we can actually make a difference in terms of how the users authenticate. And I know that Microsoft has been pushing a lot in terms of making sure everyone is running MFA, and there's a good reason for that, because the MFA part blocks up to 99% of these unauthorized access attempts that there is in most of organizations. But of course, there are other authentication methods such as passkeys and so on, which is even more resistant to phishing attacks and so on. So and that should be something that you should start looking into, since phishing and BC mails and so on keep evolving. Mainly founded within a lot of the AI-driven attacks as well, but it's still one of the major attack vectors we see. Other things where these attackers tend to get access to our environment is through cloud attacks, or often it could be misconfigurations or configurations not done. So we don't have a certain baseline of security in our tenant, and there's no need to have an open door, so to speak, if we basically haven't configured anything to a certain baseline. So it's definitely still one of the top topics, and based on the geopolitical instability that we see in a lot of the regions as well, it also drives attacks, especially for certain regions and countries as well. So if we found all this in the foundation of the Microsoft Zero Trust, the Zero Trust is basically not a product or a strategy or a technology, so to speak. It's more like a philosophy that we need to take on everything we have in our M365. So it's our identities, our endpoints, it's the apps we have in here, it's the complete infrastructure together with our network, and even our data. We need to assume that every transaction, user, or even device is a potential threat within our organization, and thereby also set the baseline based on this. So for identities, we need to protect our identities. The MFA is the hard baseline, but we can protect them even more with different conditional access policies and identity protection and so on in the intra portal. We need to make sure that devices, endpoints, and so on connecting to our environments is managed, or there's a certain level of security, so we know what devices is connecting, or at least the devices that are connecting is compliant to the baseline that you set. And for our data, we can also do a lot to secure the data that we have within our organization using the features that we actually have available within the purview, so we can classify, label, and thereby protect the data that we have, no matter where the data lives. So with that in foundation, and depending on where you are, Microsoft has a Zero Trust website where you can find a lot of resources on diving further into this, and you can even evaluate sort of your maturity level to a Zero Trust security posture as well, and a lot of this is based on sort of forms and quizzes you fill out on the website of the Zero Trust and on the Microsoft website. You saw the link in the last slide. Basically, all this is finding out where you are in terms of a certain maturity level, and based on that, you know where to target and do more work in terms of setting a better baseline in terms of security. But most of this is based on forms that you as the IT pro fill out in here. There's another way that was published a few months back, I think it was. It's a PowerShell tool that can also sort of measure and evaluate your Microsoft 365 tenant against all the same security posture, so to speak, in Zero Trust. So it's an assessment tool available here, and the links shown on the slide deck. And what it does is it runs some tests against your environment, and the assessments is founded within some of the pillars of the Zero Trust framework as we know it. So right now it takes on the identity and the device part, and depending on the users we have, it can show you certain visual representations. So it gives you a very good overview with a lot of diagrams and so on the front page of this report, and this is just a snapshot of it. So if we take a look at the user authentication, for instance, it will show you that over the past 30 days, in this scenario, 68% of the sign-ins were actually protected by some kind of conditional access, and thereby enforcing multi-factor for our users. But we also have users in this scenario logging on that doesn't have conditional access applied. So we can use that to get that overview and even dive further into why is that and so on. We also see how do users actually authenticate, what are the methods of authenticating. Are they using a phone authenticator, passkeys, or what other methods are they actually working with here? And this is just some of the parts in the visual representation, but when you have that report, you see at the top of the menu, you also have those topics like the identity and the devices. So if we dive further into the identity part, you see the test that has been run. So from this demo, we see some of the tests have been failed, and you can basically click on the individual test and get a guidance on how to move that failed test to success or pass. And the same goes for the device part of this, where you get a guidance on, well, why were we passed, which tests were included in this, and how do we get there, and what are the official documentation and further informations on this. So based on this, it's very, very valuable information to actually get to know about your current state of your tenant here. So if we take that along and move into our M365 tenant, we also have a newer feature which was introduced around the Ignite timeframe a few months back. We have something called Microsoft Security Baseline Mode. Basically, the baseline security mode covers selected workloads in the M365. Such as the M365 apps, SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams, Exchange Online, and the Entra identities. So basically, what it does is that it's a unified, like a single place where we can start working with the security postures founded in those zero trust areas like identity, device, apps, and data. And based on this, it gives you sort of a way to set a baseline. You can set a certain baseline for all of it, but you can also dive in to individual parts of this and only use some of them if that matches your organization even better. Let's have a look at how it looks. So I logged into the demo tenant here, and it is right now in the Microsoft 365 admin center. And in here, under the settings and org settings, this is where we find the security and privacy settings and so on for our Microsoft tenant. And this is also where we find the baseline security mode. So as soon as we click this, it will go in and give us options to basically enable the sort of the default policy, which will then be applied for all policies, so to speak, and thereby we definitely make sure that we set a good baseline to start off on for the complete tenant. But if you're in doubt of the different rules or policies that is being set here and really want to work with each of them, you also have the option to open the security mode here in the bottom, and we see the different policies available in here, and a little similar to what we saw in the other tools, that as soon as you click one of them, you get some guidance on what does this actually do, and how do we customize the policy so it can be set to match your organization. It's definitely an interesting tool for Microsoft, and it's also a great way of heightening the security for a lot of mostly probably smaller tenants that doesn't have the same focus, but at least it should be a good baseline to work off out of to make sure we have that level in place. Other areas of features to work with, which is highly interesting in terms of our M365s, is the Microsoft Secure Score. It's a security tool that is available in the security or the Defender portal. And with this, it helps understand where to reduce the risks and report back the current state on our organization security posture. And with that, it also provide that visibility and guidance, so we better can control this. And it gives us back numbers on the different areas as well, so we can compare those benchmarks of each and every one and use that as KPIs moving forward, basically. So if we have a score like in this example, we still are founded within the main pillars as we know it from the zero trust, like identity, data, and device and apps. So it really depends on which areas you work the most with your security policies and so on. But basically, whenever you do changes to raise the security bar here, you're given points in the system, and that then changes in terms of your security score. And it's a great tool to actually help improve and also give you a good visibility of what actions is actually available for me to try and raise the bar for better security. And I can also compare these security scores to we have a baseline or benchmark where we can compare it to organizations that look a lot like us, so we can see where are we in all this, and from understanding how the secure score works, it actually works on different products. So it measures a lot of the workloads you already have in M365, and also depending on the integration we have to certain third parties, it also does some measurements on some of those, and gives back recommendations again within the secure score portal. So we have something to work with. The recommendations that we get don't cover all attack surfaces for each product, but it gives us at least a very good baseline. And of course, with the Microsoft own products, we have a lot more recommendations available than we have for maybe some of the third-party ones. So, and what's important also to know here is that whenever we do a change and work with some of these, it's also we set the action. So if we have changed something to heighten security in Defender for Office for our phishing or whatever, or if we have done something in the Defender for Endpoint, it will automatically pick up those changes and change the secure score over time. But in case we run third-party apps for XDR and antivirus and so on, that score is not measured in here, because it's suddenly we're using a third-party product that secure score cannot measure. But as the IT admin, we still have the possibility to actually mark the actions around XDR and Defender for Endpoint and so on, that it is being handled by a third party. And depending on all the recommendations they provide, it's also a good task list to move over to that third-party system to actually make sure, well, is that third-party system then configured correctly in terms of the recommendations that we get from Microsoft? And based on that, you can mark all that as actions that you have actually covered within the Secure Score portal, and based on this, it gives you scores back. The benefit of this is that it helps us to report back to management. It gives us a one number, which is something they understand on C-level or has to report back to the board. And for a lot of organizations, they also talk to peers, and Secure Score is also a good measure to compare against different organizations. Is how much work have you actually been doing on the security baseline within your Microsoft tenant. So it's for us working with the tenant or giving access, it's definitely a very good tool to give us that visibility and guidance and compare that against benchmarks. And it's recommended to again go back to the tool continuously, because things change So it's not enough to just configure it and then get back in about a year or so, because since things change all the time, it should be something that you put into a process and get back to over time, maybe once a couple of weeks or at least once a month or something like that. So you pick up that number, how it moved, or okay, the tasks that we identified last month, have you completed those? Where are we with those? Set off new tasks that we need to work with, and so on. So let's just dive into the Defender portal again in our lab here. So when we enter this, we have the exposure management, and under here we have the secure score, and it presents you with a dashboard to begin with that gives you that overview of where are you on your secure score. And then we see the different possibilities, and if we, so for instance, this one is very low. Again, it's a brand new lab tenant that I just ran up, so nothing has basically been done in this, but it was also a good way of showing a very low bar where we can actually get up. So for most organizations, it should be fairly easy to get the bar raised a good number, or at least 50 towards 60%, and moving from there gets harder, and you also have the more to evaluate against your settings in your organization and the business, how it actually reflects. But the benefit here that I wanted to show is, it might be a bit small here, but let me just bump it up. It gives us that recommendation of tasks that we need to work with. And since this lab tenant hasn't done anything yet, of course it wants to ensure that we run multi-factor, which should be the baseline for all our users. And it tells us, well, the implementation to actually configure this is based on this, and again, like in some of the other tools, show us where we can find more information about this, and it also guides on where can we actually configure this. So if we're ready to go through the steps we see in here, we can, as the IT admin that wants to configure some of this, go directly to the inter-admin portal, where we can start working with the task and the actions found here. And as soon as we set informations and has addressed any of these, well, it will eventually pick up. It's not like it's real time and you see the measurements and the numbers right away. It could take some time before it actually picks it up. And if you're not ready to do it right now, you can mark it as address and then get back to it, and you can see differently how it was set. Again, as mentioned earlier, if you want third-party AV XDR products or anything, you can say it's resolved by a third party, and it will be marked in here, and you have that overview, but that you have taken a decision on the tasks in here, but the decision is then targeted a third-party product that you have made available or using in the organization. It will always show you the history of when has changes happened here, so you will see a visual representation of this as well. And this is basically the tool to work with here. So if you have a lot of tasks in here, sometimes it's a benefit to move the data out, work with it in another way. That way it could be exporting it to Excel, and thereby maybe dividing the task among colleagues in IT. So if anyone is responsible for the inter area, it's another way here would be to identify, well, what intra tasks do we have? keep that overview as well, and work your way to the list here. That could be another beneficial way I often see used here. Let's get back here. So as the IT admins are responsible for the organization, SecureScore is definitely a tool that can help us prioritize the risks that we see, because it can pick up based on current configurations, and it's very measurable to see the improvements that you do based on the SecureScore. And again, that number is also something that can be used to push further back in reports to management as well. Other tools available when we talk about the security or the Defender portal is the Microsoft Defender Vulnerability Management. It's a different tool, but again, it's something that gives you an overview of security as a whole for your organization. It consists of different feature sets. One of them is sort of the discovery and monitoring feature, which uses built-in or agentless scanners basically to monitor your environment, and based on this, it picks up what devices, endpoints, software, and so on do you have in your organization, and based on all this, it measures against those and the risks that it gets from the Microsoft Threat Intelligence and the intelligence network as a whole, to see do we have any risks in here based on these device assessments, and it can help us prioritize where are our biggest vulnerabilities in the organization, and thereby giving us, again, in a report dashboard, a single view where we can prioritize the recommendations that they put into the vulnerability management portal. So we can see if there are risks based on certain CVEs, or which devices are exposed to this, which software is exposed to this. If we have certain software like the Chrome that needs to get updated, do we have Chrome? On how many devices do we have Chrome? How many devices has not been updated with Chrome? So it helps us give that overview. Let's have a look. My current lab doesn't have the full vulnerability management, so I have some examples to show here, but when you're shown the dashboard, you get sort of the full overview of what is the current state. But as soon as we dive into the assessments, we see everything that we have in the organization. So all the endpoints and so on that is currently managed will show up in here. Do we have Windows 10? Do we have Windows 11 devices? Are they also updated? Do we have any exposed devices? Do we run Chrome? If we have Chrome, is that a threat? And if so, how many exposed devices do we have in here? And again, we can click on those and dive into them, and we can also see a full overview of those security recommendations following those potential threats that it found. So the first one on the other page was that we had some Windows 10 devices in that example. The recommendation here is to update the Windows 10 OS and so on for a lot of the other software that is found. And then it shows the remediation actions, how to again move the baseline and help us increase security in our organization here. The vulnerability management is not part of all M365 SKUs, but it's available as far as I know in most of the feature set in the business premium, but otherwise it's part of the E5 suite or the E5 security. But if you have plans in the M365 tenant that currently doesn't have vulnerability management, you can also get licenses where it's added as an add-on and put that into works in your tenant. It's definitely a good tool to get that solid overview, because it also measures up against the threat intelligence network and all the CVEs that is published in terms of security risks on not just Microsoft product, but all products that it identifies. So thereby it's a great tool to get the full overview. Other ways of diving in and getting a good overview could be Meister. It's a free community tool, which again does sort of a baseline. It's based on PowerShell, and it works by both people within Microsoft, but also people within the community. And it continuously evolves. I believe right now it's over 312 security tests. So we have a lot of tests in this tool that target most of the workloads we have in M365. And a lot of the tests done as well goes back to different frameworks as well. So being PowerShell, you need to install the modules, but as soon as the module has been installed, you connect the Meister to your tenant, and there might be some pre-requirements in terms of if it needs to connect to Teams, Exchange, and so on. But it needs some permissions into your tenant to actually run the assessment that is needed here. And when we have that connection, we can invoke and thereby start off the test. The reason why I'm not running it right now live is because it can take a long time to actually run the tests. And I believe running it last night on the lab I have here, and without that many users actually, it took about 10-15 minutes to run that test. So even for a large organization, it can take 20-30 minutes or so to run the tests. But basically you kick it off. There are different parameters, so depending on the test and what you need to want to run, you can decide that as well. But the output of this will be a report available in HTML and in JSON format and in Markdown format. So depending on how you want to access the data, you have different options. Similar to what we saw before, it looks a lot like the same basically, but let's have a look at it instead. So let's just close that one and close that one, and yeah. As mentioned earlier, it's an open source tool. It can be found on meister.dev. And when you're on the website, the best way here is to go in and get the introduction. There's a lot of information in here, depending on how you want to approach this. Of course, you should start off by using the information to get it installed and so on. As soon as you have installed it and it's run, you can also decide if this gives you value in terms of the reports and the test being run. There are actually options where we can use it as basically a monitoring tool. So you continuously monitor your tenant's configuration with this, and it can be set up in either Azure or GitHub Actions or other options in here. So it can run, and it can either push notifications, alerts, emails, and so on. We have the option here, email, Teams, Slack. So there are definitely different options to do this. It's with the work that is being put into Meister and the continuous involvement of all the security tests that we see in here right now. It's an amazing tool to actually keep up to date and continuously follow your tenant and where you are. Let's see here. The different tests available is also outlined here. So you have the built-in Meister test, but a lot of it is also founded in either CISA and CIS tests and so on, and all that is then being integrated directly into to Meister. So if you run the full testing in Meister here, you get a full 312 test being run at the moment. This is the result against the test tenant that I just recently spun up, and of course not a lot of work has been done on exactly this tenant, but that also gives us a very good tenant to work with in terms of security. Again, it gives us an overview. What kind of severities do we see? How many high, medium, and so on. You can always see how many tests might be skipped or failed and so on. There could be different reasons. Some of them could be that we don't have the module available for Teams in my scenario here, and then other options. But as soon as it finds tests down here, you can see the status. Let me just zoom in there. You see if it's passed or if it's failed, or if it's just being skipped. Again, like we saw in a lot of the other tools that was available, as soon as you click one of the tasks on the list, you get a very good explanation of what is the remediation actions, more information about this, and how to actually go in and remediate these actions. So next time you run the tool, it will get back as passed and so on. You can export it again to an Excel. A lot of people tend to find it better to work with some of these tasks in Excel, and it's very easy to move all the tasks that we found in the testing here back to Excel and continue working with it from there. So that was just to give you a heads up, an overview of what Meister can actually do. So that definitely gives us a lot of options to work with our secure posture in Microsoft 365, and for most of them it's centered around tools that is available for most people out there, depending on the licenses. And if we see the security by baseline mode, that is available in all tenants, no matter what licenses you have available, and that gives you that tool that can quickly go in and enable that to get a Microsoft managed baseline for your entire organization. So as soon as they add something else, it will be picked up and available into your organization as well. Continuously working and having that overview of security, or the state of your security in your M365 tenant secure score is the place to go. It's prioritizes based on the zero trust pillars, and again gives you continuous recommendation on the findings in here, and make sure that we can always see based on those KPIs and the score we have we moved since the last time we worked on some of the tasks. So it's a really great overview that is also something management definitely understands. Another more deep dive is the vulnerability management. For that one, it depends on the license you have. It doesn't with the rest of the tools available here. But the benefit of vulnerability management is that it will give you a broader overview of known vulnerabilities, CVEs, and threat vectors from the threat intelligence network, and then measure that up against your current configuration, what is available within your organization. So depending on the devices, the software that it finds in your organization, you can see exactly where you have vulnerabilities and then work on those vulnerabilities or risks going forward. And then we have the Meister tool, which is a community tool, thereby free. It again runs security tests based on best practices. It's quick to run and gives you that continuous report of where are you and what is your state based on all the security tests. And as you saw from the documentation, you are also able to work with this even more, so you can use it to basically monitor your tenant with these Meister security tests, and thereby having them run in Azure automation or anything like that. So whenever changes happen, or if you once a week or once a month want to get a Meister report, you can schedule that and all the time be up to date. And then we have the tool that we looked a bit on in the first part, the Microsoft Zero Trust Assessment tool. Again, it maps up your entire tenant towards the Zero Trust pillars to give you that measurements score of where are you in terms of the Zero Trust. So overall, that's a summary and a wrap up of how to try and master the security posture of your M365, and it's very important that you try to set a certain baseline, and it's very important that you see this as a continuous actions that needs to be done. And a lot of the tools that we covered today can help prioritize the security actions, because some of them might be a must-have and easy to do, but some of them might be something that you need to evaluate for your organization, how they fit and how it will affect with the changes that we put in here. So find a good process, how you can use a lot of these tools and how they fit in with your organization, so you can continue to improve your M365 security. So as a wrap up, there's a little room for questions here in the end, but otherwise I hope you enjoyed my session and found some inspiration in how to do more with your security posture in M365. I'm monitoring the chat and the QA, so if any questions, then do not hesitate. Otherwise, do not hesitate to reach out on LinkedIn or anything like that as well. I'll stick around for a few minutes, but otherwise, thank you very much for your time.